Okay, so what we want to do is enable sorting on our grid. Okay, sorting's not quite as simple as the paging. So the first thing we're going to want to do is set the allow sorting property to true.
All right.
Seems simple enough. The other thing we need to do is on our bound fields, we also need to add a sort expression. So by adding a sort expression property, that's going to make that column heading clickable, and it's also going to tell the grid what's the name of the column to use for sorting when the user clicks that column. So we'll set up the sort expression property, and we'll just make it the same value as our data fields. So if we've got a data field of course ID, we'll have a sort expression course ID. So we'll add the sort expression attribute to each of our bound fields. And if we refresh our page now, the sorting won't work, but our those 4 column headings should become links. So just add the sort expression and set the value, same values you got for the data field. Course ID, title, credits, and name. If you refresh your grid, your headings should be clickable now. They just won't do anything.
Wow.
Okay, so now they're blue. I get the bootstrap rollover effect. However, we've said allow sorting, but we haven't written the event handler for it. And because edit and delete have no sort expression, they're still just static text.
Oh, it doesn't do anything with the link though. Links cause errors.
So we need to write the event handler. So on sorting, we'll create a new event. So now we'll jump into our sorting command. So the first thing we want to do is get the column to sort by. So I'll just create a variable called sort column. Actually, you know what? Sorry, rather than creating it as a string variable, I'm going to use a session variable. We're going to use 2 session variables because our page will be reloading, so we need to keep track of which column are we currently sorting by and also which direction are we sorting, ascending or descending. So we haven't used a session variable before in .NET. Unlike in PHP where we annoyingly had to call session start, we don't need to do this. So I'll create one variable called sort column, and we'll set it to our argument.sort expression. Okay, so that'll give us the column name the user clicked on. So now let's repopulate the grid. But we're going to have to modify our courses, our get courses. So set this session variable, and then we're going to use this when we call get courses. We use that session variable in our get method.
Do we have to use sessions? Can we have like a variable
We can. The challenge is if the user then clicks again, we've lost that variable, right? Because the variable won't persist on a refresh.
Will it persist if it's a class level variable? No.
It won't. So basically you've got a couple options. You could use the session, or we could use a hidden label or literal control and write the sort column into that control and read it out of there. But if we just use a variable because it's stateless, we'll lose it. So now I'm going to go back up to my get method. So in here, what we want to do is we want to add our sorting in here. So we're going to modify this line a bit.
Order by.
Here I'm going to set up a string called sort string, and we'll set it equal to our session sort column. Session variables are just type object, so we have to convert it to a string. If I leave off the toString, I'll get a type error. That it can't convert object to string. Yep.
The session is only lost when the tab is closed, right?
Nope. Even if you close the tab, but the browser window's still, it's when the browser's closed. Or it times out. Default timeout's 20 minutes. Okay. So if it's been greater than 20 minutes with no activity on the page, or the entire browser is closed. Okay. Or we have log out and we manually kill the session on a log out. Okay. So now we're going to have to change this. In our toList, before we can call toList, we're going to get a type error if we do this. So here's our modification. We'll call as queryable. Dot order by, and now we'll pass in our sort string. And I'm missing one thing. I think we're missing a reference at the top in order to be able to use this. Yes. So in order to get this as queryable to work, we'll need to make another reference here, which is system.web.model binding. Thank you. Hang on. Okay, no, that's not what
Or just as queryable. Do you want to be using like as queryable and then like a type in there? Or something? As queryable.
Bear with me for a second.
Type of elements of the source.
Sorry, that's not the reference that we want. We want system.link. Oh, sorry. We have to do it through the NuGet package manager. So we need to add a package in order for this conversion to work. So if we go to Solution Explorer.
Can we just do order by in our query?
You can't, it doesn't work for some reason. I'll try it. It's a good question, Sam. So let me set this string variable first. We'll try it, but I don't think it will do the order by. So I'll set my string variable first, and then in my link query, I will add order by sort string. We can try this,
Yeah.
but I don't think it's going to do the sorting for us. Theoretically, it should. I'm not quite sure why it won't work.
Somehow it would have to be like literally pasted in there somehow.
Well, the value's there. The sort string is actually there. It just doesn't seem to run. Whoops. Here's the other problem. Our sort string is only being set when the user clicks the column heading. But when the page first loads, they haven't clicked the column heading, so our session sort column is blank. So what should we do to get around this? Yeah, let's set a default. So if postback is false, meaning the page is being loaded for the first time, let's set session sort column equal to course ID. Then it won't crash when we load it for the first time. We'll default to using the first column in the grid.
What did you add to get that to-list working?
Well, I haven't yet. I haven't. My couple attempts didn't work. We'll need a reference through we'll need a package through the NuGet manager. So we'll try this. Actually, I'm going to run it with the debugger just so we can actually validate that our sort string is working. Okay. Hang on, I'm going to do it this way, but we're going to need to change it, I think. Theoretically, it should work like this, but for some reason it doesn't. Okay.
It's making the connection to the database point string 4. Checks the value.
That shouldn't matter. So sort string is course ID, right? So in my link query, our order by, it has a value. Sort string is not blank. And now we call toList and bind. Well, we get course ID, so that's fine. So what happens now when I click on, let's say, course title? So our sort string now says title. We've changed it properly in our sorting command. And in our link query, it says title.
Where did you set the default? Yeah, it's not posted.
When we did our original, yeah, if it's not posted back. So when we load it now, it should be sorted by title, but it's not. We still have C first. If I start paging, you can see it's not sorted by title. Even though we passed the word title into our order by clause in the link query, didn't seem to do anything.
I feel like it'll work.
Still running by course ID.
You have to explicitly type the word title. That will make it work.
Yeah, the problem is it's going to be a variable. That value has to be a
There's
variable.
got to be some sort of conversion that you can basically get it to take it literally.
Well, our workaround is to use, we can use the as queryable, convert this to as queryable.
Yeah.
So if we take the order by out of the link query,
Link query.
okay, we'll take that out.
To query. How to create a link query from a string.
So if we click on Manage NuGet Packages, right-click your project, click Manage NuGet Packages. Sam, I have no doubt you're going to find an alternate solution by the time I get this one working. And what I want you to search for is system.link, which is linq.dynamic. That'll bring up this library. Make sure you're in the online tab. So choose online and search for system.link.dynamic. It's not case sensitive. And then we want to install this assembly. Right here, this is the Microsoft assembly for the .NET 4.0 dynamic language functionality.
Nothing is found.
Did you click on online,
Yes.
Ben?
What does this actually want to do for us?
It's going to add a reference to a new to a link language library that will allow us to do the conversion of our link query object so we can sort it.
Okay, so that's not something that default, like, comes with.
It's not installed by default. It's an additional package that you install as needed. Well, we need it, so we're going to install it.
So if you want to do any sorting for the database, you have to have this.
Yeah. So just install that package. Now, Ben, when we export this project as a template for next week, it'll already be here. We won't have to do this again. So it's a small package. It installs quickly. Visual Studio will give you a little green check once it's installed that package.
I ended up getting the permit. I ended up getting those permits. Hey, Ben, what?
So now we'll try this again. As I may still have to make a reference. So there's our code, but we do need a reference up above. So we're converting our courses data set. We're making it queryable so we can sort it in memory and then convert the result to a list. But we do need a reference up at the top to system.link.dynamic in order for that conversion to work. So up at the top, I'm going to reference system.link.dynamic. Once I make a reference to that package we've just installed, my as queryable conversion will work.
You just have to set the sort column once all those acknowledge that.
Yeah, so I set the default sort column.
What was it, system.link.what?
System.link.dynamic is the reference we need. So we should be able to do our sorting now, although it's only going to sort ascending. So we're going to have to.
Like, make it so if it's already like you sort it the other way.
Yep.
Go to more.
So I'm going to show all records, and now if I click on title, now we get A to Z. The only problem is if I click title again, we still get A to Z.
Oh, man.
Brad, do you need a tissue? So now the other thing is we also need to track whether we're sorting it up or down so we can toggle it, and then we want to add that little arrow to indicate which column we're sorting by. Okay? So again, I'll just highlight for you all the changes. We need to reference system.link.dynamic after adding the NuGet package. We're defaulting our session variable to course ID when our page first loads. We're adding a local variable and reading our session variable into the local variable. And then we're using as queryable so we can resort that list in memory before we bind it to our grid.
This is considerably better than PHP.
As I've said, it would be like if you've only driven a golf cart and suddenly someone gives you the keys to an SUV.
What if you prefer driving a golf cart?
What's that, Brad?
You're an idiot.
That's fine, but we're gonna get where we're going much faster than you are. Okay. So now we also need to keep track of the direction. So let's initialize in here a session variable called sort direction. And let's initialize it to ascending. So by default, we're sorting ascending. Sam, I know I really put the pressure on you there. I'll give you more time. I'm sure you'll have a good solution, a more efficient solution for me next week.
There are some solutions, but they were like too much.
So now what we want to do on our sort string is let's append on, after our sort column, let's also append on the direction. So not only are we sorting based on the column, but we're also going to have an ascending or descending. We don't have to change anything in here. But on our sorting command, we're now going to have to add some code that will toggle the sort direction, right? After we call get courses, if we're going ascending, the session variable has to become descending and vice versa. Then once we get that working, we need to add in some code for the up and down arrows.
Why don't they just build this to a Gridview?
They should. Okay. So we'll reload the grid. And now let's toggle the direction. So if our session variable is ascending, we'll toggle it to descending, else we'll set it to ASC. Not exactly rocket science here. Now, some of you may have noticed, here we used e.sort expression to get the column name that was clicked. There is actually a sort direction property here as well. I haven't been smart enough to figure out how to actually use that. I can't seem to get it to work, so we're just going to use a session variable instead. Sam, there's challenge number 2 for you.
Take off fast. Can I get 100% of my exam? Can I get those marks back?
Let's not open that can of worms, shall we?
Well, I'm going to open it. It's already open. It's on the floor.
And on the floor it will stay.
Not on the table.
Okay.
But we got to spill you everywhere.
So we want to make sure we do this after we call get courses, because we want to show the list with the current direction, and then we want to change our session variable in case the user clicks on another column heading.
It's toggle time.
So now we should be able to go both ascending or descending.
Nice.
I would make it a Boolean value. That's fine.
You would do a lot of things, Sam.
So now we can click on title and we get ascending, we click it again, descending. So any column, any of these columns, now we can sort up or down. So all our functionalities here, we should add those arrows. Any questions so far?
1 second.
So again, we've added this sort direction, a session variable. We're defaulting it to ascending. We're appending our direction on to our local variable. And then after we call get, we just toggle it. If it's ascending now, it becomes descending. Otherwise, it becomes ascending. Questions?
links for ascending and descending?
Sorry, the links?
Did we put links to click? Did we? I missed that.
No, as soon as, Ben, adding this sort expression property automatically makes it a link. Okay, if I take that property out, so I'll take it out of the title
Yeah.
for a minute.
Yeah, no, I got that part, but the ascending and descending.
We haven't got there yet, Ben.
Oh, okay, I wasn't sure.
You mean the links or the images?
Well,
Sorry, maybe I'm not fully understanding your
I wasn't
question.
sure, like, are we gonna put like a little arrow that say up and down?
Yeah, that's what we're gonna do next.
Oh, I wasn't sure if we had done that.
No.
Oh, okay.
So what we have to do, I mean, Brad's right, it would be good if they baked that right in. For some reason they didn't. I don't know why they haven't. I mean,
You just click it and
we're gonna have to put that in ourselves, okay? So on Blackboard in the Lesson 9 folder, I've given you a couple of images, so just go to your Lesson 9 folder. So in here, just grab this little zip file called Gridview Images. Save that link into your project directory. Okay, so I'm just going to go into my Lesson 9. Just save it right here, and then extract it, and it'll create an images folder with an ascending JPEG and a descending JPEG. Okay. So just save that. Put it in your project directory.
Where in the directory?
All these arrows.
So here's my images.zip. Just write in where all your web pages are, right in the root of your project. And then just say extract here,
Is it on Blackboard?
Yes.
and it'll create an images folder with an ascending and descending arrow.
Ask these kids.
So there's the ascending arrow and there's the descending arrow. And I put a little padding on the left so they don't appear right up against the heading. At least there's a little there's a few pixels worth of space. Well, I found the arrow and I put it in, and then I realized I had to stretch the canvas size a bit and change the background color because it had a white background which looked crappy, and it was pushed right up against the headings, which also looked lousy. So you should have those two images inside of an images folder.
The lesson on your
So the next thing we need to do is we're going to need to write a bit of code to manually figure out which column are we sorting by and which direction are we sorting in, and add either the ascending or descending arrow to the appropriate column. And if we had it in a different column, we need to remove it. So we need another event handler. In our grid view, we want it on the row data bound event. So every time there's a new row in the grid, so let's create a new event on row data bound. So this will write an empty event handler here. I've given you a good chunk of this code. You can ignore the first two lines because Visual Studio just wrote them. On Blackboard, if you grab everything except the first and last line, so all of that in blue, copy it.
I feel like you need to miss the second line too.
Yeah, sorry. We don't need, thank you, Sam. We don't need the second line. So start from the if is post back.
Do I get a mark for that, Rich?
You don't. But I appreciate the suggestion. And exclude the final curly brace. So copy all of that. It says partial code for the up-down sort arrows. So paste that into your row data bound command.
I feel like I'm missing that.
Object here.
Okay. So wherever you see square brackets,
Row data bound is on, what's that event from?
we just generated,
Okay, sorry.
we just added that.
Serious apologies. Love Sarah.
So wherever I've put something here in square brackets, we need to flesh this out and figure out what goes in here. So you can take a stab at this on your own. We can also go through this.
Data row.
So if I hit the dot after data control row type, what type of row are we looking for? What type of row should the arrow go in? A data row, empty, footer, header, pager, or separator? Where are the arrows going?
Header.
Yeah, in the header, right? So we're only doing, this code only needs to run if we're in the header row. If we're in a data row, we can ignore it. We're not going to put the arrows in the data rows. We're putting the arrow in the header. So we need something here instead of the blue. What type of object do we want to create? Yeah, we want to create a new image. So now we're going to loop through each column in the grid, and we're going to compare whether the column sort expression is equal to one of our session variables. So what needs to go here?
Sort direction. Sort direction.
Then
We're checking whether the column sort expression is equal to which of our two session variables. Yeah, we want to compare it to the sort column. Is the current column the same one that the user just clicked on that we set as our session variable? Right? So if they clicked on title, and title is the current sorting column, then we evaluate, well, which direction are we going? Ben?
When you're doing the first if statement there, comparing if grid courses or grid courses dot columns I, what does that dot sort expression do?
Every column has a sort expression property.
Couldn't you just use the data field or something instead of saying like the both courses?
this is a property that you access to set the language here.
No. It has, because notice the columns collection doesn't have a data field. The data field is particular to the fact that it's a bound field. So all the columns have a sort expression, even if they're not a bound field. So for example, let's say we want to use a template column because we want to show the last name and first name in one column. We want last name, comma, first name in one column. We can't use a bound field for that if those are two separate columns in the database. We'd use a template field. The template field has no data field property, but it would still have a sort expression property. So the columns object would be any type of column. So if the sort expression is equal to our current one, if we're sorting descending, what image do we want to set as the source of our image? So we'll want the DESC, and our alternate should obviously say sort.
DESC or is it DES descending?
So obviously in our else, we're going to choose our ascending JPEG. So we can dynamically set the source of the image. And then we need to add that image object into the particular cell we're in. So now we'll add our sort image variable. We've set the source, we've set the alternate text of the image. And now we're adding that image into our column at the top. So now we should be able to compile.
There we go.
Sorry? Yeah, yep, they're right here. Gridview images. So now if we try it out again, so if I pick department, I get department ascending with my little up triangle, down. So we should just make sure it works on all 4 columns in both directions. The nice thing about the paging and sorting together, I can go back to 3 records, it still keeps my sorting. Right? So if I sort by title, I can still go page 1, 2. So this is also where the session variable is helpful, because they might page through and we want to keep this sorting. If we keep it and put it in a local variable, that's going to be gone.
Oh, but for the brackets.
Ah, yes.
Okay. Any questions, issues with the sorting? Okay. So if not, what I want to do is move on to this section. We want to build this out. So on our student page, when we're editing, when I add a new student, we just get the top form. But if I'm editing an existing record, not only do we populate the student data at the top, but we're also populating a grid view of their related data in the enrollments table. Okay, so we can see the student info, and we can also see what courses the student's enrolled in. We can also choose to put them in an additional course. So right now, here's what we have when we edit a student. We've got this section. So let's open up the student page. Here's the page as we built it several weeks ago. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to put on a courses subheading and a grid view called GRD courses with these columns: department, title, grade, and delete. I've then given you part of the code to populate that grid. Using that grid, we actually, in this case, we're going to use a join syntax because we've got to select not only from different fields, but we also have a where clause. So this will allow us to show both the department name, course name, and grade. Okay. So what I want you to do is add the HTML for the grid. You guys can do that pretty quickly. Build a grid view. And then take this code and it goes into the bottom of your get student method. So we wrote get student several weeks ago. So if we're not doing a post back and we have a student ID in the URL, we're calling get student, we're looking them up, and we're putting the name and enrollment date in the form. So this code all runs unchanged, but after, you then need to paste in this section and complete anything that's in blue and take out the square brackets. Okay?
That's it?
So try to do that on your own, and then we'll go through it together in a bit. And then hopefully we'll have time to also add the cascading drop downs at the bottom so that we can add a new enrollment onto that page. Okay? So build the grid, leave this part out down at the bottom for now, just add the grid, and complete this code in the get student method. I'm going to put in a grid view. I'll set up a data key name of enrollment ID, so that way if I want to delete a student's enrollment, we'll need that ID. And I'll create a row deleting event handler so I can delete. Yep, that code should go in get student. After we get the student, let's also get the enrollments for the courses the student's enrolled in. So my first column will be the department. My second column will be the course title. So we'll show the department name, we'll show the course name, we'll show the grade. Oops. And then we'll put in a command field. So that's what we need for our grid. Auto-generate columns is false. We'll set up the enrollment ID as our key column. We'll write the delete handler. We don't need a column for the enrollment ID. That value is not particularly of any use. So we can just omit it. We don't have to display that column.
Auto-generate columns goes false.
So there's all the HTML that we need. So now we should be able to lift the code I put on Blackboard, put it into the bottom of our get student inside of our using section, because we're still connected to the database, and we need to flesh out and complete that block of code. So I'm going to grab that code off of Blackboard. I will dump it into my get student method, and we can try to complete it. So I'm going to copy that from Blackboard, open up my get student. So here's my using. During this section, we're connected to the database. So I want to put that new code inside of the using clause. So now we just need to make the proper references, the proper models and fields. So what's the first model we'll need here? Yep, we'll need our enrollments model. So enrollments and courses are joined based on the course ID, right? Every enrollment has a course ID foreign key. So we'll link these two based on course ID, right? You sign up for a course, we need to keep track of what's the ID of that course. And the departments and courses are joined based on that department ID foreign key. So we'll use department ID in this part of our query. And we need our student ID variable as our where clause. We don't want to get all the enrollments for all the students, just the enrollments for the current student we're looking at. So now what fields do we need to show in the grid?
Grade.
So we'll get our, yep, we'll get the grade. What other field do we want from enrollments?
Enrollment ID.
Yeah, we want the ID because we'll need that for doing delete. Even though we're not showing it. So we'll get the enrollment ID and the grade from enrollments. What do we want from the course table?
Title.
Yep, we'll take title. And from the department table,
Name.
we want the department name. So we can use joins in link just the way you would use them in SQL. So those are our three bound columns, grade, title, and name, and we'll use the enrollment ID for doing delete. So a student drops a course, we'll want to be able to remove them. So we'll need to know which student, which course. The enrollment ID will tell us. So we'll add the delete handler in a minute. Let's make sure that our grid actually loads like this.
Can you paste the HTML for student keywords? Show it for a second.
Yeah, okay. So here's the grid. We should also add our table class to stretch it out. If I pick a different student, we should get a different list of courses, which we do. So if they have a grade, it shows up. So I have to go back to the HTML anyway. So in my grid, I'm going to add a class. We'll use the same class we've been using for grids. Table, table stripe, table hover. We're almost done. We just have to do two small things with this. We want to enable the delete functionality.
Mine won't work with downfield for some reason. This whole my Gridview.
Are they inside column tags? You need a column, opening and closing column.
Yeah, I missed that one.
So if I refresh it, my grid now looks better. When I click delete, nothing's going to happen, even when I say OK, because we haven't actually written the code to do the deletion. So we need the delete code. There's one other small thing we'll need. When I click add, it's still showing this title here. So what we should probably do is put that whole section in an ASP panel. We'll make that panel invisible. And if this code runs on getStudent, if getStudent's called, we'll then make the panel visible with the course enrollments. So,
What do you want to add us to? You want to add courses?
well,
Was that?
we've got a couple options for doing that. One is, like right now when we click save, it automatically redirects. I'm going to leave mine so it will still redirect, add the student first and generate, because we need a student ID, right? We have to save that student ID. So then we're going to come in and edit them. I'm going to leave it that way. If you wanted the other option for that, it's a good question. We could also, I could change this to say save and exit and add a separate button that says save that would invoke the save and keep us here and then turn the courses grid on where I could add. So if you wanted to do that way, you could. I think I'm just going to keep the redirection and let them come back in to enroll a student. So in my row deleting,
All right.
so we'll grab the data key value. So we'll figure out what row they clicked in, we'll get the key value, and we'll convert it to an integer and put it in a variable.
It's just a habit that you use during two seconds.
Yeah.
Lowercase integers are two.
We'll connect to the database. So we'll connect with our using statement. We'll look up that record. We'll remove the object, call save changes, and then I'll just call getStudent to repopulate the page. So it'll refill both the master and the detail, which is okay. So we'll get the selected record, delete, refresh the data on the page. So now we should be able to take a student out of a course. We're not deleting the student record, we're deleting the student record being enrolled in one specific course. So now we should be able to pick on a student, click delete in the courses grid.
Enrollment or enrollments?
Enrollments.
Might be different lines. I may not have changed it.
Could be.
Where?
Come on, man, think of the page.
I'm trying. I ended up working in departments for no reason. I don't know why.
So try it out now. You should be able, if you click delete and click OK, it should remove that student registration in that one course, and it should refresh the page.
Having one problem, I can't parse the grid, I can't parse the enrollment ID. It's interesting. I don't know why. Can you just show your
This
code for
is
that?
all class, nav, bug, nav. Nav, bug, nav.
Values. Enrollment ID. Try. Convert.
So if I go and look up a student now,
How that works.
I should be able to delete them from any course they're enrolled in.
How's the confirmation come up? Was that?
We put that on the master page. We said any link with the text of delete, we added a jQuery script.
I may have fricked that up.
That's right here. So the code for that, Sam, is on Blackboard. That was back in week, I think, lesson 5.
Somehow it's not.
We linked to the jQuery CDN and added that JavaScript. So if we had a link and the text of that link was delete.
Was it?
No, I think it's probably week 5. It was week, actually, it's probably week 6.
Here it is. Yep.
Look at week 6.
Student.ASPX. Oh, the edit page. Just the part that we just put in. Like the grid.
Okay, I want to give you your lab before you get out of here. Oh, you preferred I give you your lab after you left here?
No, I mean-
Sam, I could give you the lab later.
Don't give it to us. How's that?
Okay, here's lab 3. Basically what I want you to do is implement the stuff that we did today in the students and departments. Okay, so you have students and departments. Pretty much everybody in here did lab 2, so you already have the departments pages. So what I want you to do is on students and departments, add paging and sorting to those 2 grid views. Okay, so that's part 1. And I said 3, 5, or 10. This could be all. It doesn't matter. Okay, so we'll just add the same kind of functionality that we did today. Okay, so add sorting and paging and give the user a few options for page size. So you're going to put that both here as well as on the departments page. So all 3 of the grid views should have sorting and paging enabled. Okay, so that's part 1. Part 2 is on the bottom of your department page, there should also be a grid that shows all the courses in that department. Okay, so if I pick
Oh, really?
English, this should have a grid that shows literature composition with a delete link. Okay. So when I look up a department, I can see the related courses. The other requirement is on the bottom of courses. Oh, you'll actually have to build this page. It's okay. You'll have to build course.aspx. There should be a drop down. And when we pick a course, just like when we picked the student, we saw all the courses the student was enrolled in. If we picked a course, we should see all the students enrolled in that course.
Is that drop down populated from the database?
Yes, and this drop down has to be populated from the database. Okay, I'll add that on here. Okay, I'll give you until, rather than Thursday night, I'll give you until Friday night. So you got an extra day.
Like, this one?
Yeah, normally I give you a lab on Wednesday afternoon, you have until Thursday midnight. We'll make it Friday. Okay?
Friday at midnight?
Friday at midnight? Oh. We're getting done tomorrow we're there by 9 a.m.
That's a loaner. That's almost a
We can go to the other one.
No pay card.